All right, we're ready to go. Just gonna wait for people to start trickling in. Just click the little join button to get in. Oops, wait for people to start trickling in. And I'm gonna mute that audio. There we go. Cool. We'll just post the join link in chat too. Hey, Zach, how's it going?
Good. How's it going with you?
Oh, hold on. I can't hear anything. I messed something up. Okay, now I can hear.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better.
Cool. Yeah, I'm good. Just did a work from home day, which is always nice.
Oh, yeah, those are the best. That's the one thing I love about not working for anybody else now. Working from home every day. It's just, I feel a lot more productive that way.
Yeah. So I've been with my current company about 2 years, and I actually just had a conversation about my boss about taking my job fully remote, and he basically said, okay, you know.
Oh,
so
sweet.
Probably be doing that in the next year or so, I would think.
So. Yeah, that's cool. That would be nice. Well, you do web stuff normally, right?
Yeah. I work for like a finance company. Does, we have like a web product. So.
Oh, cool. What language are you doing that in, by the way? If you're
it's in .NET. So, we have SQL Server backend, and everything's pretty much Microsoft. We're in Azure, and, MVC, web app, C#, all that stuff. So.
Oh, okay, cool. Actually just setting up some web API services earlier this week.
Nice. Good stuff.
Yeah, I like it. It's been a little while since I did it, but it's still as straightforward as I remember. Pretty simple to get it all just working and get the apps connecting, and seems like it's all good to go.
Yeah.
Although I was looking at trying to do the switch over to .NET Core. I still used 4.6 just because that was what was out last time I did it. Mm-hmm. I feel like I should probably make the dive to Core, but I wanted to make it work first.
Yeah. The Core stuff seems really interesting, but I don't know. Actually, the Tech Talk, not Tech Talk, but like the at the meetup where you gave that Unity chat, I had gone to one in the past about .NET Core, and it seems really cool to use, but there doesn't seem to be a clear kind of upgrade path from the full runtime. It seems like it can get kind of messy trying to convert an existing app into Core. A lot of copy paste, and just trying to make stuff work. So
yeah,
I don't know if we'll do that anytime soon.
But yeah, when it was first coming out, I remember thinking about converting over some of the existing apps that we had, and it was not really a good option. It looked like it was a lot of work.
Yeah, but new stuff going forward seems like it'd be perfectly suited for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and now that they're on version 2, I'd rather do that and then in 10 years have my app not be on the deprecated thing.
Yeah,
than stick with the one that I know, just because I know it, and then eventually it's old and outdated. And so how's the course going, guys?
Yeah, it's going good for me. Excited to get this new project going. I haven't done I think I'm a lesson behind right now, but overall pretty good. I'm noticing a lot that one area that I guess kind of struggle in is more of the design side, so like when we're doing the level building or trying to paint textures and stuff like that, it's kind of hitting that more of that kind of creative side, and I guess that's where being a game designer kind of comes in, right, as opposed to just programming.
Yeah, game designers or artists, like that whole it's the visual design stuff that you're talking about, because I think most programmers are pretty good at systems design, like creating a system that is fun to play and plays well, but then actually designing out levels and making things look good is a lot harder. It's a whole different skill set.
For sure.
Yeah. Good game designers can do amazing things. I don't know how many times I built things and was like, oh, this looks pretty damn good, and then I'd give it to a game designer, and the next day all of a sudden my thing just looks like total crap. Like, oh yeah, okay, I thought it looked good, and then I saw something that really looked good.
Yeah.
Yeah, game design is tough. It's a lot harder than people think too. It's weird. Like, I think most of the time when I talk to people about full-time game designers and have to explain that game designers don't generally code or make art, they always get very confused about like, what the hell does a designer actually do? And it's a lot.
Yeah.
They take all these little pieces and turn it into a game.
1, 2, 3.
Hey, Alejandro just joined too, and Paul.
Yep.
Cool. So how far are you guys now? I think Alejandro's all caught up, if I remember right from that last email. How about you, Paul?
Too. I'm really enjoying it.
Nice.
See it right here.
Anybody getting stuck
A lot
up?
more than I did before, which is good.
Oh, good. That's great. Yeah, I'm trying to re-hit some of the important topics too, just in this other project, just to make sure that the important things are all covered and kind of stick. Sorry, my dogs are going a little wild right now. Somebody must be outside. Oh, yep, his wife just got home.
Okay, so they shouldn't be barking.
Yeah. Oh no, they'll bark. It doesn't matter what it is. If there's a noise outside, they go to the door and then look at the wall and bark at the wall. It's really weird.
While I'm thinking of it, when you've got links to Unity packages or whatever, can you put them in the email? Because I run a separate machine, has the video on it while I'm working, so I end up having to go log in and chase it up there.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. I will. I'll start adding those. I didn't even think about it. Last time I actually forgot to post the link too, and then somebody reached out and was like, "Hey, that link that you said was here isn't here." Ah, crap. So yeah,
That's
a pretty good idea. I'm great, Alejandro. How you doing?
I do it every time. I know how to do it.
Cool. So does anybody have any questions about stuff, or just stuff that they want to learn about, want to see in this project?
So one of the things I've been wondering about, and this might not be applicable to these projects in general, but does Unity provide built-in support for, let's say you wanted to deploy some kind of mobile app, and you want it, to have some kind of not really sure, it would be like client server architecture, so like I'm thinking like a centralized way to communicate with players, or like if you had players of a game, how do they communicate with each other? What does that networking stuff look like?
Oh, okay. There are actually a lot of different options, which I think makes it kind of hard. If you want to have real-time stuff, like real-time multiplayer things, you got to go with something like Unet or Photon. Or there's one other one. There's a Bolt networking system now that does it too, and those all do. Like if you want to have just real-time games where shit's happening on one system, it happens immediately on the other. If you just want to do more like turn-based stuff, there are a couple options. I think the last time I talked to people who were doing this at scale, they were still using PlayFab, but I'm not sure if that's still around. I haven't built anything that was turn-based in a while. Let me see if that one's still. Okay, yeah, that one's still right. It must have been a different one I was thinking of that died off. But yeah, PlayFab. It looks like Microsoft bought them too. So it for like turn-based stuff, leaderboards, that kind of thing. A lot of the time too, people use the built-in ones that are native to the system, like the Google Play and I forget what Apple's is called now. Apple's got their own, and then there are plugins that you can grab on the asset store that make those pretty easy to interact with. So if you want to use like their push system or their leaderboards or their matchmaking, usually what I would do is, at least in the past, I would just grab the Prime 31 plugins for them. They're like $30, and it saved me all of the time of writing a wrapper that wraps into their native code, and those worked great. I would look at is there a specific type that you're looking for?
I mean, I'm not working on anything in particular, but just in general, the concept of, I mean, I know something as simple as maybe like storing high scores across players you could use like the Google Play Store or something like that.
Yeah.
But I was even considering, like, do people, I'm sure they do, but like if you would build your own API, maybe even on like a server that you hosted, would you be able, like, what does it look like from a Unity's point of view to actually connect to something like that and handle data going back and forth?
Oh, okay. In that case, if you wanted to do your own API, which I've done, I probably wouldn't do now unless I had a really good use for it, just because it would probably be easier and faster to use an existing one. But for that, you just use simple web requests. And the web request, it's actually changed since the last time I used it a little bit. It basically does HTTP requests with a web client object. So it's a lot like doing it from a WPF app or any other Windows app and hitting a web API service. I actually wrote a wrapper for it. I can look around and see if I can find that still, because I was doing a lot of that many years ago. I actually have to check and make sure that wrapper still works too. But it would just wrap around the requests with the generic type and pass the types back and forth and just serialize them over with JSON. But it's it's just a simple like HTTP request essentially.
So really just everything that kind of the standard .NET stuff comes into play. It's not necessarily Unity specific.
Right. And that's more so now that 4.6 is common, or is no longer experimental. It's actually a release version. You can just use, I think, almost all the normal C# networking stack now.
Okay.
But yeah, if you're doing like a big scalable game, I'd also just look at some of those other options like PlayFab and some of the existing ones where you won't have to manage a server, unless you really like to do that. Like some people like it. I used to love it. Now I've gotten a little lazier with that stuff, so just try to farm it out. But yeah. Let's see. Shows inventory system. Would like to add some UI to the inventory system. Player can pick up several things from this UI inventory. Possibly. I think we can definitely expand out the inventory system and weapon pickups and do a little bit of UI around it. I don't know if I'd do a full inventory system where you're picking things up and moving them around in different slots. I'd probably do one of those. I just don't know if it would fit in really well. So probably do it as just a separate video to do like a full inventory system. I don't know. Let me think about that though and see if there's a way I can slot that in and make it make sense. But that would be cool though. Inventory systems are always useful. Yeah, I'll see if I can figure out a way to get that in there and make it make sense with everything else that's coming.
Jason, are the videos going to stay up and be available after the class is over? Okay.
Yep, leaving them up permanently.
Okay, cool.
I had no plans to ever take them down. So.
Yeah, I feel like they'd be a good reference to go back to and see how things were, how things were done.
Oh yeah, and go back, grab, and download the packs and all that stuff. Yeah, that'll all be there. I was no plans to ever take it down, and it's cheap to keep it up, so it should stay up there forever.
Awesome.
Cool. Anybody have any other questions? Anything else to talk about?
Yeah, a while ago in one of your emails, not to do with the course, you discussed publishing stuff on the Unity store. Haven't had much experience with that because you just sort of left it as a passing comment at the time.
Oh, on the Unity Asset Store, right?
Thank you. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So I actually have. I have one asset that I put up there. Let me pull up the page. And I have two assets on there. One of them does really well, and the other has never had. Sarah, just pasted the link in chat. So this multiplayer VR kit does good. It's sales. I don't know what that. It's usually around like $600 in sales, whatever that comes out to in count, every month, which is great. And then I have another one that's art only, and it has had 0 sales since I put it up a couple months ago. So it's a very interesting. I'd like to do some more code-based ones sometime soon. I did an art one because I had some art. I figured why not give it a try. But I think I'm gonna probably do some more code ones in the future and see how those do. I don't know if the amount that this thing is pulling in is standard or normal, or if it's high or low or what. They don't really have much to compare it to. But I have been talking to a lot of people at local meetups who have things in the asset store, and they're generally doing really well. I think one of them's got a good amount of art in there and making, I think, a little bit more than that multiplayer kid is making. And one of his friends has a ton of art in there and is making, I think he said it was like 10 to 20,000 a month in sales on all the art. So.
Yeah, I started when you did that. I thought that's interesting. So I started organizing all the code I've been writing for different things, which was really, really very useful. I had to document it, which means I can actually use it better myself now. So I haven't got as far as publishing anything yet, but having a lot of fun with it. Biggest limitation is the whole Unity package thing. If your package relies on someone else's package, and it can be challenging because, as far as I can see, sometimes you can load something. If the relied on package isn't loaded, the editor's no longer working, so you can't get the package properly.
Are yours relying on many other packages?
No, more or less relying on each other. So therefore, I can always just package them together when they do that.
Oh, okay. Cool.
But in general, I just found it a few times. Like I did one that I wanted to do proper decoupling. So, for example, to stop a lot of this problem, so you can decouple from your advertising, and then if there's nothing there, it'll tell you, and if there is, it'll pick up the ones you ask it to, like Chartboost or Unity.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of made it easier at that level. But I've noticed a few times I had issues around that. I just wonder what do people in general do? I mean, it's easy for graphics packages, but when it comes to code.
Yeah, for mine, I just included everything, but I didn't have anything that was a paid one. The only thing I really needed to pull in was Steam VR, and I was kind of surprised that they let that slide, but they let it through and it worked fine. I should probably actually update it so it stays up to date with the latest Steam VR. I don't know how it works really with some of the bigger ones. I know sometimes they'll have a Unity package inside there for optional things, but in my experience so far with just talking to people who bought the previous asset, it seems that most of the people that are buying the things, probably like 90% or more, don't really know what they're doing with it. They're just pulling it in and playing around, and very few can actually understand the code and read through it and kind of make things happen. Seems a lot are just kind of getting it to experiment and look at things and don't really know what it's doing, which I guess isn't too much of a surprise. I mean, there are millions of people using Unity and on the asset store, and I'm sure only a small subset of them are actually like developers or programmers. A lot of them are artists and game designers and other people that just want to plug things together. And I guess the point of that is they need it to be very, very, very simple. Like one of the things that's required now to submit to the asset store is that you have a demo scene in there so that people can pull it in, play the demo scene and see exactly how the thing works and see that it works. So they don't have to do any configuration. And then the other thing that I got dinged on at first was just not having any documentation. So I quickly fixed that, but I still ended up with a negative review because of that.
I got yes. Well, I removed the directory called test, and I now call them examples because that's exactly what it is. When you write your tests, they're also the examples for a code type test stuff. Yeah, quite useful because your demo scene as well as your background tests. Because some things you have to do at the front end to see them do their job.
Oh, sorry. Hey, Chris, what's up?
How's it going? I have baby duty right now, so I'm just kind of listening in, but I'm here.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, we're just talking about some random stuff now, asset store things and web stuff, all kinds of things. You got anything to add in, Chris?
I just got here. I don't know what.
Did you put your asset for sale? Like you did, yeah?
Yeah, it's up there. The generator.
Yeah, how's that going? Paul was just asking about assets. He was thinking about making some.
I had 2 sales, I think, since I published it, and then so like not a ton of stuff. I gotta go look it up right now. It wasn't too bad. Let me see here. Oh.
Yeah, Chris did a unit testing framework.
It's
unit testing.
It's like a generator, so for generating new scripts, and it makes it easier to do unit testing. But it also lets you generate new C# scripts without the start and update. Like you can generate when you go to generate C# script, you can make that script be whatever you want now.
Oh, that's actually a template. That's actually built into Unity. You can just modify that template file.
Yeah, this one is you can have all your templates in your project, and then it's really easy to modify rather than going into the guts of Unity and changing that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it starts out that way, but it also has a template. It has as many templates as you want, and it has UI for entering fields to name things right off the bat, too. So I have a YouTube video uploaded.
Very nice. I just posted the link to it in the chat, too, if anybody wants to check it out. Yeah, I downloaded it. I have still not had a chance to actually play with it. I'd like to do that soon.
Yeah. Just put it in a project and then right-click and create, and it'll have the whole unit test scaffolding for you. But it's still like really awful because you have to do a full IOC sort of deal there. So.
Yeah, I'd like to do like a little series on unit testing in Unity sometime soon, just to go over how to do it right, how to do it clean, and I'm just not quite sure that I'm going to do it right or clean yet. So I need to get a little bit better with it, especially on the mono behavior side. It's easy on the non-mono behavior stuff, but getting the mono behaviors tested well and figuring that all out is a bit harder.
Yeah, I have a couple of examples in my my shmup project. And basically, like I have to make a giant interface exposing all the getters and setters of the mono behavior, and then I can mock that interface out, doing an IOC pattern. So it looks super, like dirty, I guess.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So,
yeah, it needs to get better and cleaner. I don't know. I think it's going to happen though eventually. I'm really kind of anxious to see what the script behavior ends up looking like, the new mono behavior replacement they've been talking about.
So that's not the same stuff as the ECS stuff?
No, this is, it may end up running on top of that eventually. I don't know. But this is like the next iteration for mono behavior and scriptable object to bring them to be more like normal C# stuff. So there'd be abstract methods or virtual methods that you can just override instead of magic methods that you have to know the name of.
Yeah, okay.
And then there were some other changes they were going to do in there to that whole pipeline. But it's one of those things that I'll be excited about for the next year, and then a year later it'll appear or something.
Yeah, when you forgot about it.
It seems to be about how it goes. Like I was really, really excited for the Unity 4.6 update, and then I just got so used to working around it that I got much less excited. I was like, okay, it's here. Cool. I can clean up a couple things, but you get used to just kind of working around the limitations, which is a bad thing, I think.
Yeah. I mean, you have to do what you have to do, right?
Yeah. Cool. But anybody have any other questions? I still got one video to get up for today's lesson. I don't know if you guys saw it. It's up there now. Things start to look a lot prettier now. Get the visual effects in and stuff. Baby's got a question. How is that baby now? A couple months?
3 months.
Congrats again.
Thanks. Yeah. I don't know how I'm doing this class with the newborn in the house, but you know.
In bits and pieces.
Yeah, exactly. I get like an hour or two a night and then just go as fast as I can.
You got to train the baby, dude.
Yeah, that's true.
Got another 9 months before the first computer.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I guess I'll cut it out here. I think tomorrow I'm going to do a live stream on the ECS zombie stuff again. If Chris is still in.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I'll do it.
So we'll be doing that. Just trying to figure that system out. Like I was saying before, though, I sent an email earlier. It's not really that useful yet. It's pretty cool. It's fun to learn about, but it's not like super actionable right now. But it's fun to watch and fun to play with. So if anybody wants to hop into that, let me know.
I think if you're good with being in code all the time,
yeah,
that's the big thing.
It's very much everything is code. There's no Unity stuff yet for it, but it's fun. It's neat making 100,000 or 1 million dudes walk around.
Yeah, I tried it out with so I realized we did 10,000 and 1 million during the call, but we didn't do 100,000. So I popped it out and we did 100,000, and that was like 40 frames a second. Is what I got on my laptop, and it's just a Lenovo Legion $1,000 laptop from Costco.
Yeah, I did it. I pulled it down and I did 100K at, I think I was at 90 or 100 frames a second on a desktop. So sounds about right. Pretty cool. Hey, what's up, John? We're just wrapping things up. What's going on?
Oh yeah, we were having our own hangout. I don't know what happened, but me and a couple other guys were having our own little discussion here, and I popped up and said, "It's not like Jason to be late," and so I figured I'd check, and sure enough, somehow we ended up in an alternate dimension.
Oh, weird.
Different call, yeah. So I have the call from last time up.
Yeah, I bet the page was still up from last time and hadn't been refreshed, so it had the link to the previous call on it.
Yeah, it's all good. I really didn't have any questions, and I was just popping in to say hi, but you know, I still had a pulse. So.
Oh, cool! Wow, hey, we got a lot more people now. Let's stay on for a bit longer. How's it going, guys?
Hey, Jason.
Hey. How's Hawaii? Are you back out there now?
Say again?
I said, how's Hawaii?
Oh, I'm in LA till July.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. Scott, John, and I had a grand conversation over on the other one, and then we decided we better drop in on you.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. Oh, man. That's awesome. I'll have to refresh those earlier. Maybe I'll just kill the join button after the call so it can't happen again. Oh, so did you guys have any questions? How you guys doing on the course stuff?
Jason, I'm Scott. I'm the guy that has written to you a few times about all the various life factors keeping me behind everybody else in the coursework. My wife is still recovering from her surgery, and I'm getting ready to travel yet again on a Unity-related business trip this weekend, believe it or not. So I'm about a week behind, but doing well. And part of it is my own damn fault because, as I was telling the other guys, when I hit a topic, you know, I've had previous Unity experience before this course. So when I get a topic that's an area that I don't already know, I have a tendency to deliberately let myself go down the rabbit hole and see how far I can push what you started.
Nice.
And I'm totally cool with that. You know, I'm not blaming you because since there's no grades or anything in this, my goal is to get as much personal learning out of this as I can possibly wring out of it. And if that means I take a little longer to finish, I'm totally down with that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Seems to be the way to go. What is going on over there? Some door slam. What are you going to Unity related, if you can share?
I can. It's this. Okay, so I don't do Unity as my day job, although I do have a published asset on the store. I'm aspiring to do Unity in my day job. I'm doing some part-time contracting now, but I was invited to return to my alma mater, the University of Missouri, for this this weekend. They are having a student programming competition, a Unity game jam, and I had the honor to be invited back as one of the professional judges.
Oh, awesome!
And when my boss heard what I was doing, I was prepared to pay my own travel expenses. But my CEO, even though I don't work for a Unity company, stepped up and said she'll pay for the trip.
Oh, sweet!
Nice, congrats.
Because if you're willing to wear company logo clothing, I'll pay for your trip. So.
Very cool. Yep, that is perfect. Yeah, dude. Judging on those things is a blast. I've done that a couple times, and it's always fun just looking at what the students build, and they come up with some crazy stuff. Plenty of bad stuff too, but lots of crazy and interesting stuff. It's a lot of fun doing that. So yeah, I have a blast with that.
So I have a question. If nobody else has one, I've been talking, so I'll shut up if anybody else has anything they want to bring up.
Oh, ask away.
So on project number 2, I'm still in there. Partly because I decided that some of what we were doing was stuff that I have another project coming up that's a personal thing that I wanted to build things that were reusable in my real project. And one of the things that you did, and I'm going to say this with great respect because I know, you have good reasons for it. You chose not to abstract the concept of the enemies and the characters of the various sorts. You chose deliberately, and you explained it in the classwork, that you did not want to make those come from an abstract parent class because you didn't want to tie them together. I took a look at what you were doing and then decided, for my own reusable purposes, I went back and did the exact opposite. I made an abstract class called a mobile abstract for any kind of a mobile, creature, enemy, NPC, whatever, and then that abstracted out just the behaviors related to things like using abilities. My ability system ties in at that level rather than tying in at the character level. And I'm just curious if you could maybe discuss a little more about what you see as the pros and cons. I mean, I'm sure you've done the way I'm doing it, and you probably have some pros and cons there, and you probably would say, well, there's reasons for doing it Scott's way, there's reasons for doing it Jason's way. Can you go into a little bit more detail about why you chose the method you did instead of the way I did?
Sure. Yeah.
And I think alternatively cases where you think my choice is the right choice, if there are situations where you would have done it the other way.
Yeah, definitely. I think the key thing there is just the difference between going with inheritance or composition for building up the objects. And the biggest thing that I've run into in the past is just once you get into bigger projects where things start to get a lot more complicated, when I have a lot of inheritance, I end up with a mess. So the code in the base class slowly starts to morph and change as requirements change for the inherited classes, and the way that, like, for instance, with the movement, could end up that they need to move completely differently all of a sudden. And then if they're using the base class and the base class is handling movement on its own, then I have to start to refactor all of that stuff out and use some new systems, maybe inject in movement systems to that base class. And that's been the case for a lot of projects I've been on, like especially these really big MMO style projects. They have a bad tendency to, at least from what I've seen, they tend to have a lot of inheritance and a lot of layers of inheritance. And then you start to go up as you're looking at the code and finding all of these checks where they're checking for things that they shouldn't know, like they're checking in the base class if they're using the inherited class, because now they need to modify that behavior a little bit. So I've been really pushing myself towards a much more compositional model where everything is just, shove all these little components together and then build the system at the prefab level. And it's felt a lot cleaner, and it's just been a lot easier to swap things out. Now, that's not to say that I wouldn't use any inheritance at all. I think in the video I did today, is doing some inheritance for weapon components, just to make those things that I know are never going to change and aren't going to be bigger systems where we're going to have lots of different things using them. Those ones dive to inheritance almost immediately, but with components as well. It's kind of weird. It's like a weird mix. And I'm sure the other guys. Go ahead.
It's interesting you use movement as an example of something that doesn't do well with inheritance, because coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally, when I did my abstract class, that was actually a piece that I chose for the same reasons you just said, not to abstract that part. I did that compositionally just like you did.
Yeah, and sometimes it can work, right? Like if it works in your project, it's not a bad thing. It's totally fine. It's just that I've been in a lot of projects where that movement.
Your point on that is that movement just doesn't inherit well from an AI-driven movement and a controller-driven movement. Those are dissimilar enough that I couldn't see any good way to do that with inheritance, so I stayed with your compositional model.
Yeah, and then if you go to like the other thing is like start adding in network movement and the AI being able to take over the player's movement. Like one of the things I need to code up soon is a beer system for this game, and the problem there is that the movement system for that, because it's all in some base class, is it's not swappable. It's not easy to change at all. So I've got to go in and refactor a whole bunch of stuff just to be able to make it so we can change what's moving a specific entity. And that's
it's like the functional programming movement. So like when everybody talks about functional, they talk about program without using if statements or for loops or any and the idea is that any curly braces can collect like junky code. It's kind of like a lint trap in a dryer, and so the idea is that rather than using inheritance, you in like an object-oriented space, when you're kind of trying to think that way, you want to avoid doing any like base classes at all, because it ends up, from the design patterns standpoint, it ends up harming you more than doing any good, because it's another place for things to collect up bad code. But that's an extreme point of view.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point, but yeah, it's definitely a little extreme too, because it's still, like I said, it's still use some base classes when it makes sense, when I know the functionality is not going to change, and it's relatively lightweight, so that it's just like on the one I'm thinking of just today, the weapon component stuff. Instead of repeating all that code for a bunch of different things that are all going to act on the same exact data, it's a lot simpler. It feels a lot cleaner to put in a little abstract base class. But yeah, the thing I really worry about is like the multiple levels of lots of inheritance, which is weird though, because I think about it more like in my C# tooling stuff, I still use probably way too much inheritance. It's only in my Unity stuff where I've actually started to make that big shift.
Yeah, I also like C#, for example, as a language. It doesn't support multiple inheritance, but it does support multiple interfaces.
Yeah,
and so that's also kind of a good reason to do that, is that if you're looping over the same object in different contexts, you can give it the ability to recognize those things in multiple contexts. So if you find yourself ever like needing both an interface and a base class, that's kind of a sign that you could just use multiple interface inheritance instead.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and actually, I don't know who that was just speaking, but I spent a lot of years as a Java developer, and so when in inheritance world, I have learned to be extremely careful about where I draw those factoring lines between base classes and subclasses, because if you don't get it right, you can afford to make mistakes more at the subclasses than you can at the base class. If you get stuff in the base class, like Jason was saying, that if you don't do a good job of information hiding from the base class, and the base class starts doing checking for special cases and stuff, if you've got a case statement in your base class, I found that that's usually a warning sign that case statement better be there for a damn good reason.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Just tossing 2 cents on that one. I'm really liking the composition model that Unity provides. Decades ago, it was the sort of other object-oriented method that I'd studied and proposed for a lot of things in the world-building areas. And then I got out of the business, so it's really neat to see it there in the world when we come back into it. It makes it a lot easier to have the non-programmers doing the world building and let them be creative with it all and let me build tools.
Yeah, just the components are amazing. It's really cool when you show people who've never coded anything before how you can just kind of start slapping these components on and making a thing work. And I think it's a lot easier to understand. It makes a lot of sense when you put on a component that's a move component and the thing moves versus going in and writing code, at least for somebody who's not familiar with writing code at all. Their first dive in.
And then you get into things like Bolt, which lets you compose even more like Houdini and Touch Designer and those wonderful things.
I haven't used Touch Designer.
That's a neat one. You'll have to check it out. Touch Designer is the derivative of Houdini.
Oh, okay. I'll have to check that out.
Which is a derivative of the Prism system that I wrote in the 80s.
Very cool. Yeah, I've used Bolt a little bit, and I thought it was pretty damn impressive. I still struggle to find a really good use for it for myself, just because I feel really comfortable in the code side. But I think that there's a ton you could do to really enable design teams and art teams with that system. It feels like Playmaker, but clean. Right? It's like what Playmaker should have been.
There was that Kotaku article that said that Overwatch is an entirely GUI-based programming system.
I saw that, and it looked like a nightmare. That didn't make a lot of sense. I've
been able to get into visual programming. I used a system back in the 1990s that was an industrial controls system that was visual, but it was basically you drew a flow chart and then you wrote code in the boxes in the flow chart, and that's as close to visual coding as I've ever been able to get into, because I find I can code it up faster in a text editor than what I could graph it on a node graph.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think the best use for programmers for that stuff is like just for state machines, for like AI state machines, stuff like that, where you want to be bouncing around and you want to be able to easily visualize what the state is and why it's shifted. So you don't have, you can do it yourself. You just have to write in the tooling to be able to see what's going on. And using one of those systems helps a lot for that. Or like I said, the best use is just to enable your designers to customize the game and create stuff. You know, if you want to have them creating enemy abilities or player abilities or whatever it is from there, or little interaction scripts, and they don't know how to code, then that's a great way to do it. But I can't imagine doing it on a scale like Overwatch, like he was saying. That seems weird, messy, and really.
The article said a cloud of spaghetti.
That's exactly what I would imagine it looking like. It seems like with a game that's that well defined, you don't do that. I don't know.
You spent some time in Unreal, didn't you, Jason? Messed around with the blueprints.
Yeah, we didn't use blueprints too much though, but yeah.
Yeah, it's spaghetti, just like you said. I have a good buddy of mine's going through Unreal stuff right now, and I was looking over his shoulder, and it just blew my mind. I mean, I know you have stuff you could do in C as well, but yeah, I don't see how that's easier for people.
I don't think it's easier, at least not for anybody who likes to program or likes to code at all. I think it's much, much harder to use the visual stuff. And like I said, when we were doing Unreal, it was almost all just C++ stuff. and that was also harder. Unity is just so much easier and so much nicer to work with.
I tried both Unreal and Unity, did a small project in each before choosing Unity. And I found that Blueprints, I thought that if you're going to do a visual tool, Blueprints is probably just about as good as you could get. But I just decided I didn't really want to work visually. And the next step down from Blueprints is directly into C++. And while I have a background in embedded real-time programming, even down to assembler language, just because I can go that close to the metal doesn't mean that I want to. And Unity for me felt really good because that C# is that nice mid-level language that gives you more control than a visual environment, but less meticulous memory allocation details and crap like that than C++.
Oh yeah, that's exactly why I love it. I can do everything that I can do in C++, just easier.
The interesting thing to me for those visual languages will be the world building you can do immersed. Although it hasn't really gone that way yet, it can and will someday. But you guys know that the first virtual reality system was done by VPL, and that stands for visual programming. They did it. All their programming was done in a language called Body Electric, and it's all event-based and data flow. And for that sort of for the interactive world immersed type thing, when you're doing all those different types of data flows out of all these different inputs, it worked pretty well.
Huh.
What year was that, Jerry?
That was about the 87 to 90s. They worked on Body Electric through most of their history, but it stopped getting a lot of updates and so forth in the early 90s, and they were working on doing paying projects.
Huh.
Yeah, that old money thing, it gets in the way of all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah. I had a digression into the inventory system and the scriptable objects that it would be interesting to see at some other point. Ryan Hibble did a neat little intro touch teasing thing at the Austin UDC thing last year, and there's been a bunch of other stuff. You referenced Hibble's video in your presentation. It looks really neat in a lot of areas. But Hibble notes that the one they use at Shell Games uses generics and a lot more stuff. So I was like, okay, there's a lot of neat things here, but yeah, I could see where generics would come in handy, and it would get really busy and really deep really fast.
Yeah, it seems like they have a full big system that they've built up over the years that they're using. The video that he shows some really cool stuff, but I get the sense that they have a whole bunch of infrastructure underneath that they've written over the time. I'm not quite sure. So I've used that method just a little bit recently, but with weapons and things that have visuals, I still tend to lean towards prefabs just because it's got visual particles or visual things on it. Sometimes I'll want to just place a particle there. I want to have offset transforms and things like that. I find scriptable objects really useful for things that don't have a visual component, though, that I want to have as data that I can swap in and out. Like, one case would be like NPCs and having them at like different difficulty levels for them. So create a scriptable object for like the easy soldier, the hard soldier, the medium soldier, and then that's got all of the stats for the soldier at those different levels. And they could be like the level that they select, or the level that they're on as they progressively get harder. And there, it's more of just a separation of those stats from the visual, and then I'll have the prefab there, and then assign it and drop it on. And I find it also just easier for game designers to understand. Having them use scriptable objects where they're not placing things in the world gets really, really confusing, or where the visual is on a scriptable object and they're placing another thing that doesn't have the visual on it. Then you have to write in some editor tool so that they can actually visualize the thing that they're placing and where that's going to be and how it's going to look there. But I don't know. I really liked that whole video though, and the way that they had that system set up to make it so design can come up with all kinds of crazy ideas. I think it's especially useful for early prototyping. So they have that whole system there ready to go. They can probably prototype insanely fast because their game designers don't need to wait for programmers to add in all these new little systems and events and things. If you want to add in, a new health system, seems pretty straightforward and simple in there, or whatever the system is.
Yeah, he put up a blog and the GitHub for the code too, which is I dropped the links in the side over there.
Yeah, did he only linked the code that he showed though, right? Unless he updated this.
He updated it, and in the latest master, the inventory system is gone. I'm not sure why, but they some of the other stuff was really intriguing. He does have the float reference stuff in there as well, and some of his event stuff. And in the blog, he notes some of the first bit of enhancements that they did and changes from the code that's released. And talks a little bit about, our own internal thing does all this stuff as of generic base classes, and like, okay, that would be reasonable. But that's way beyond anything I'm going to attempt in the short term. Yeah,
I think it would be really nice if they released their stuff as an asset. If they really want to push that whole mindset and composition model forward with using scriptable objects, it'd be great if it was just something that they could. It's probably some legal reasons that they can't, but it'd be awesome if they could get it up there and have people just start using it. And if it turns out to be as good as it seems like it would be, I think it'd be the kind of thing they'd eventually just roll into the system.
If you look at some of the stuff that Joachim has been demoing with respect to the Unity job system and the ECS, the entity component system, it looks to me like they are actually not necessarily across the board, but at least for the low-level performance critical parts of the code, it looks like they're trying to move toward a more compositional model and less inheritance-based model as a company. So what I've been trying to kind of do in my own work is move to composition for things that are likely to be performance sensitive, to position myself to be ready for that stuff when Unity is ready for it. And then using inheritance kind of the way you talk about, Jason, just for stuff that is where the information model really makes sense to use an object inheritance to basically I'm using the object inheritance to capture data relationships as much as anything.
Yeah, have you played with ECS at all much?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I've watched the tutorial videos on it, but I haven't had occasion to use it yet. It looks really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
It's definitely a mind shift thing.
Yeah, they're definitely splitting things out. The biggest shift there is that whole separation of the data and logic. So the logic's all in those systems and the data is all in components, and then everything just kind of magically works together. It's really weird. So
if you look at the original principles of object-oriented programming, the principle of encapsulation was the opposite of that.
Yeah. Oh yes, this is very much a more functional programming than object-oriented for this system, at least. And it's different. I'm still very skeptical that it'll be big or mainstream anytime soon, because they've got a lot of work to do to bring it up to the point where it's approachable. Right now, I think it's nowhere near. It's only going to be used for things that can really take advantage of that performance and really need it. But it's definitely interesting, and I hope that in the future it becomes simple to use and stays fast, or that they somehow magically make the existing frameworks all work with the same performance by integrating all the ECS stuff underneath. I don't know that that's possible. Right? Seems like an impossibility, but a lot of things I thought were impossible seem to keep happening. So who knows?
I still want my GPU-based light map bakes.
Yeah, that looks like that's coming, right?
One of my projects I'm working on right now is a large cinematic render that looks beautiful, but I really, for performance reasons, need to do some light map bakes. But so far, I haven't had the patience to actually let one finish. I have as fast of I use a laptop, and my laptop is just about the fastest laptop in the world. It's a 4.8 gigahertz quad core laptop. And my light map bakes still take on the order of 16 hours for that scene.
Oh, man.
And I've got a GTX 1080 GPU in this laptop that I would love to have not sitting idle while all that light map baking is
just burn through that stuff. It'd be that the GPU based light map stuff. I don't know if everybody here saw it. They demoed it a little bit on the Unite, or no, it's the GDC talk, and it looked fast. Right? Like, I'm sure their demo was set up for it to be fast, but I mean, they're talking seconds to do the light map on the whole scene, which was awesome. Yeah, I was blown away. I'm excited for that too. Again, I don't know when the hell it's gonna come. Like, one of those things that it'll probably come right when I'm done using light mapping on stuff. Right? just my luck. But yeah, if you want to see the ECS,
get away with a lot of real time lighting. As long as you don't need area lights, if you can get along without area lights, and you are really, really careful with setting up your occlusion culling.
Yeah. I've been, in fact, I think in this last project, it's still just set to full real-time lights because it's so damn fast. It's kind of nuts. I was going to say on the ECS stuff, I was telling everybody earlier, I think we're going to hack away on it some more tomorrow, just do another live stream and keep trying to build out. We were building that little zombie human simulator thing, which is fun, like learning how to do the whole thing. So if anybody wants to jump in, just hop on, let me know. So it's fun just hacking around and learning all that, even though, like I said, I probably won't find a real use for it for a good year or two, but still opens up your mind to new ideas and new ways to do things, and I guess new possibilities for things that could be offloaded to the system that don't need to interact. Got some process that needs to keep running, like Chris was talking about, using it for procedural generation, so you can kick that all off to another thread cleanly and have it run. You do some really cool stuff, though. I think
it'd be a big differentiator for RTS games, like really intelligent units and having millions of them or something. Yeah. Well, hundreds of thousands at this point.
Yeah. Well, you could probably get away with millions. Just don't process the ones that are far away, right?
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah, that 250,000 Boids was pretty damn impressive. The thing from the GDC where they showed 250,000 Boids flocking around. But the Scott's mention of baking brings me back. I had a problem, or currently running a problem with the Project 3. The scene disappears when I look in its direction, and it reappears when I look away.
Okay, that's very weird.
It is. As you turn this way, you can start seeing the buildings start popping in, kind of the reverse of what you used to see in the old video games where the world starts popping in as you get closer.
Yeah, it's like opposite of culling.
Yeah.
Inverse occlusion culling.
Yeah, that
makes your performance as bad as possible.
Does that ever go away, Jerry?
Well, I haven't moved the character around a whole lot. I stuck him over. I did back in the first part of it. You said, "Oh, let's bake the scene." So I baked the scene with the character in one place, and then later on, when we started rigging them and doing all this other stuff, I moved them further out and away into a very different part of the scene, matching where you had them. And now when I look back at the town, I can see it. It's in the scene view. But when I turn on the game and I look in the game view, all of a sudden it's there and then it disappears.
That is very strange. Can you share? If you, I can't. Did you already share your project with me?
Yeah, this project shared with you. It's project 3. I added you to the team, sent you an email. You haven't responded yet.
Okay.
No. I'm gonna go off. I'm gonna go look offline. I encountered that exact same problem in that cinematic project I'm working on, and it turned out not to be my project. It was a bug elsewhere, like an operating system bug or something. I found the solution online, and I fixed it in mine. It's not you though. It's not even Unity. It's like a bug in something unrelated, and I had to tweak something else about my system settings to make that problem go away. But now I can't remember what it was I did, so I'm going to go see if I can find that. You guys keep going.
If you remember that, yeah, let me know, because that's a good thing to know about.
Yeah, I did post a question about that, I think, or a remark about it on the Facebook page, but I may have not have said much directly in that.
Or I might have just totally missed it. I'm gonna pull it down and check that out.
That one didn't work. Oop, that's not where I want to be. Where did my videos go? Okay. Whoop, there. Okay.
Sorry, just writing a big fat note for myself so I don't forget when we get off the call to jump in there and figure out what's going on there.
Cool. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Get that figured out. Unless we have an answer from Scott.
Yeah. The problem is I'm not sure. I thought I wrote it down somewhere, but I'm looking to see where.
Oh, okay. Well, if you can't find out, I'll still look at the project, see if we can figure out if there is something in there. But that's very strange. I wonder what it could be.
Yeah, it's a weird one. Anyways. Maybe it won't happen when you do it, and it'll be because there's something, like Scott says, deep in the configuration of the machine it's running on.
Yeah, that would be weird. Huh.
That'd be an odd glitch.
Oh, glitches are fun.
Yeah, but at that level, that would just be trying to think of what the operating system.
I don't know. Some weird GPU setting or something, but I don't know why that would be the case. It's weird. But I've learned not to discount any possibilities anymore. Yeah. The weirdest shit happens sometimes.
Oh, cool.
What's up?
The Alejandro shared in the thing the FBX exporter.
Oh.
So you can do some of the stuff to help with round trip, sending the stuff back out to the FBXs, I guess.
Yeah, you convert. Oh wow, yeah, it does a lot. Nice. I never export FBXs just because my art skills suck, but. It seems very useful if you have any artistic ability.
Well, that would be when we have to work with the artists and bring in their wonderful artwork.
Yeah.
Team programming. Wait, that was the mob programming. That's Chris's stuff.
Yep, that's Chris. Chris the mobster.
Was his the mob programming thing that you attended down in San Diego, or was that?
Yeah, his was the one. He's the one running the big mob down there, and it's crazy stuff. Like, if you guys haven't seen the video that I sent out about it or checked it out, it's cool. I think it's kind of revolutionary, like just for the way that they're productive and just the general atmosphere. Like, everybody there seemed happy. I'm sure somebody wasn't and was just hiding, but everybody that I had talked to seemed really happy, seemed to really enjoy it. And I saw people all just doing good work. It seemed like even the super junior developers, or some of them, I think he said, just been an intern and just started working there, like knew their way around stuff. They knew what they were doing. And that's really rare. Most of the time when I see a junior developer who's just out of school, they come in and they don't really do anything. They don't really accomplish anything for the first year or two. Like, they make a couple messes and build one or two little things. And yeah, like, these people were all just super productive and just chugging along. It was crazy. It's so crazy. I think if I ever do end up back at an office, I'm gonna only do it if we can mob.
They'll be on to a new paradigm by then, you know.
It's possible. I'm just hoping that the mob stuff takes off everywhere, because it's just weird. Like, you would think that you would get a lot less done by having multiple people working on the same thing, but it's the exact opposite. The code quality seems to go up. The bugs just disappear, and everybody's happy and working constantly. I guess part of it is that there's not really ever a big break in the work too. So people are constantly working, and if you need to step away for 10 minutes or whatever, when you come back in, you don't have that big context switch of trying to remember what you were doing, where you were, and what was fresh in your mind, because everybody else is still there doing it, and you just kind of jump back in. A minute or two later, you're back up to speed. So.
I can see where having everyone getting up to speed at the same time and maintaining momentum, sometimes just being able to walk away from something if you're tired and come back and see progress made instead of being right where you left it is a nice thing. So,
yeah. And then also you get that benefit, just like you do with pair programming, where you're much less likely, at least for me, much less likely to give up on something and go the cheat, easy, hacky way, because just to get it done, because that other person's there, and like you can kind of push each other back and forth to, okay, we got that, now let's fix it. Let's not put off fixing it. Let's just do it.
There was a thing today that I just got back. Sorry. There was a thing today where somebody noticed that like a whole part of the application wasn't doing error handling. And so they just kind of stopped everything and like put error handling across the whole thing, where like normally you might just like ignore it, right?
Yeah.
Happens naturally. It's pretty cool.
It's very cool. Yeah, we've been talking about mob programming. yeah, it is. Like wanting to make your thing right instead of done. It's it pushes a lot. I even noticed that when I was just working with Chris on the weekend on that ECS stuff. Chugging away at a really stupid error for an hour, trying to figure out why the hell objects wouldn't render because the heading was 0. Weirdest bug ever.
And that was rough, but we made it through. I probably would have given up a long time ago.
I would have too if I'd been doing it alone. I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with this. I'll try this next month. that helped a lot. Oh, I think Scott was asking Jerry a question in the chat.
Was it Jerry that had the disappearing objects?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
He was asking if they were all using transparent cutout or opaque rendering. I assume they're all opaque, right? If it's just the town.
Yeah, I believe it's the town, whatever you've got going on with the town.
Yeah, that should all just be set to opaque.
I can't find my specific solution, but I do recall it turned out it was something with the post-processing stack. It was either Bloom or anti-aliasing settings that were causing it for me.
Huh.
And it was in fact a bug, and I found that somebody else had encountered it online and said it's because of blah, and there's a bug file with the Unity people to fix it. And it was either anti-aliasing settings or Bloom, and I can't remember which.
Well, thank you. I'll go back and dig into it. I was figuring sooner or later I'll go back to the one of those first ones in this one where we set up that baked scene and remove it, and then maybe rebake from the current position. See if that does anything different.
Yeah, I mean, I assume you've checked the obvious stuff like your clipping planes on your camera, right? And are you doing occlusion baking?
That was part of the lesson a day or so ago, I think.
Yeah.
And I haven't changed any of the clipping planes from what the defaults were. So I don't think.
Yeah, it may be good to try just clearing out the occlusion culling data too. Just go to that window and hit clear and see if it goes away. It'll at least track it down to that specific thing.
Yeah, say it's that or not.
Yeah.
Good fencing.
Good idea.
Put a fence there. Okay. After 7, time for me to bail.
Yeah, I gotta jump over to another meeting in just a minute too.
Good to chat with you all. Thank you.
You too. Yeah, and if anybody has anything else, let me know. I think I want to do another one of these this week. I don't know what day. Maybe Friday. Just jump in. Even when there aren't questions, I just have fun jumping in and chatting. So.
Jason, you're doing a great job on the course. I'm really enjoying this. I was one of the lucky bastards who won the tuition as a prize from DevDog from their.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so absolutely loving this, and you know, the fact that I'm behind schedule is more me going down rabbit holes. It's got nothing to do with you. I'm loving the material though.
It happens. People have lives. things happen. It's all good. Cool. Well, good talking to you guys again.
Yeah, take care, guys.
Aloha.
Later, guys.
Good night.